that screen record worked. You know?
Yeah.
I hope that worked. Let's see if it did. Oh, no.
Welcome to Hot Laps, brought to you by Heatshield Products. Race testing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Hot Laps. We are on lap number 10, double digits. Pretty incredible. Before we begin though, we want to remind everybody out in social media land to stay safe during this time and keep in mind we're Americans, right? And we're not going to let this virus, this Chinese virus, get us down.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
the Kung flu. No, not going to get me.
The country was settled by pioneers going across the West. I mean, those brave people that came across the ocean before the brave people went out West. So, you know, we're a tough country. We can handle it. And this is why you buy American people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're here. We're doing this thing. And
we hope that you're safe wherever you are.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk some shop with Patrick Hill, and he's part of our team out in Florida.
Absolutely.
And welcome, Patrick. And he's in charge of some of our marketing and media. And if you've ever read our blog on our website or our email blast, that's done by Patrick. So, Patrick, thanks for coming in and being the guinea pig for Skype here.
Patrick, he's our first Skype guest, and he's also the wordsmith. Unfortunately for poor Patrick, when I'm writing a product description, because I am not a wordsmith, he has to translate Steve and make it something that all of you can understand. Yeah, he's got to put it in English because Steve doesn't always talk English. So, welcome aboard, Patrick.
Okay. It's a lot easier. I've had to translate engineer speak before.
Yeah, that's rough, dude. Engineer is rough.
So welcome, Patrick. Thanks for being on.
Oh, thank you guys for having me on. I know it's early out there, not so early for me here in Florida.
Yeah, but we're all hunkered down. You're a rare person right now in Florida because you are hunkered down inside a bar and they're all closed.
Yeah, well, I have the keys to the place, and I just come here during the day. This is kind of like my off-site to get out of the house, and I also keep an eye on the place during the day and help the owner out because he lives about an hour away.
Yeah. So. Keep an eye on the liquor.
Yeah. No one I knew that owns a bar was ever dumb enough to give me a key. So obviously you're a trustworthy person, whereas I may not have been, and I still may not be, but I don't know.
You're trustworthy.
I like to think I grew out of that, but.
What's even better, too, is we have a small kitchen in here, and I have access to the deep fryer.
Oh, deep fried Twinkies yet, or Snickers? Have you done any of that yet?
No, we haven't done any of that yet, but we have a whole other assortment.
How about some deep fried Heatshield?
Oh, yeah.
He's from Florida, deep fried gator tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have great wings here.
I bet.
Hey, well, normally we have a kickoff question, but I switched it up a little bit today because I think it's pretty important that we discuss some stuff here. And I just want to talk about the idea of made in the USA and the importance of buying American, right? And I don't know, Steve, it couldn't be more important right now, it seems to me. And I just want you to kind of tell everybody again our policy on our raw materials and the stuff we make here, and has it affected the production at Heatshield, or what's the deal?
So far, our supply chain is great. We don't have any trouble. And again, all the employees, we've stressed to them, hey, you only come in if you feel safe, only come in if you want to be here. Just because, I don't want anybody to feel like intimidated, like they got to come into work. They just need to.
And your job secure.
That's right. Your job is secure. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think just more than ever, people should have been buying American all along for a lot of reasons. It keeps money in this country, keeps people employed in this country, keeps the money in this country.
Right.
And then instances like this where there's like a global supply. Now does it mean like I got a buddy locally that makes just these unbelievable headers. He's such a skilled fabricator, and he was never able to sell them because the Chinese stuff would always come in, and it was like a 25% of the cost. But now that Trump had put those tariffs and everything in, he was able to finally start selling headers, and things are finally costing what they should have all along.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what it is, like that cheap those cheap $2 shirts you buy at Walmart, those all have a price. Your kids can't get jobs, those types of things. So it's important to keep the money here in this country. When it comes to insulation, like what we're selling, a lot of the Chinese stuff, the stuff you see it on eBay, and I always just try to tell people, just be safe. I understand you don't always have the money for something. Some of that stuff, especially the insulation stuff, is extremely high risk. Cheap exhaust wrap, it's not made of fiberglass. They'll say it's a ceramic wrap, which sounds great because ceramic can take a higher temperature than fiberglass, and it can. The problem is ceramic has a shorter fiber, get into your lungs.
Very hazardous.
Dude, totally. The long-term effects here are not good on a lot of these things. So, man, just use discretion. And it's not even like just when you put it on. It's like because a lot of the stuff gets cooked, gets brittle, falls apart, and those fibers are around you and in the air and by everybody you're around with. So, it sucks. It sucks that this is where we are. But maybe we all learn a lesson this time, and we support our country, support our allies, support the people that,
support us.
Support us. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you said, we tell everybody if they want to come in, they can come in. If they don't, they can stay home. But, I mean, production-wise, we're 100%.
Yeah, 100%, and our sales are strong, so that's good.
Yeah, and we want to just thank everybody for that.
Yes, thank you all very much for that. And we're very blessed, and we're probably very unique, but we're very blessed, and we appreciate it all.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Now, let's get Patrick's feedback on it. Let's get a question out for Patrick
I was just going to ask Patrick about, where he stands and what he sees in the automotive industry about made in the USA. And, it's pretty early to see if there's any tides changing right now. But, I mean, Patrick, what's your view on that?
Well, a few different things on that. One, to something Steve was talking about earlier, too, and he mentioned, some of the materials that are coming from offshore that aren't exactly the safest in the world, and he's talking about the short fibers of the ceramic. There's also something people need to be aware of on that, too, is as that material is heating up, what kinds of things, fumes that you're not seeing that are getting released, that if you inhale a good whiff of that stuff, you start smelling and inhaling it long enough, it's going to screw you up pretty bad. Yep. Some toxic fumes and whatnot. But, overall, as far as the Made in America goes, one of the this started a while ago, and one of the biggest factors was labor costs. As labor costs started rising, and everybody went, hey, wait a second, I can move this out of the country. My the cost of making the product via labor goes down immensely. And at first it seemed like it was a good thing. But then as more experience was gained, then you find out, oh, okay, there's the negative of our stuff's being made in sweatshops now. And, products being made in sweatshops in less than ideal conditions that can present a PR nightmare. Mm-hmm. You also have the quality factor, the consistency factors of, you tell them to make it to a spec, and they'll make it to that spec. But can they consistently make it to the spec?
Right.
And they'll also, without telling you, the manufacturers over there, if they could find a way to make that product cheaper and still meet what your technical specs are, they'll do it without telling you about a change. And unknowingly, then you start getting that product in thinking it's the same thing, but it's really not. And then once it gets out into the environment and is used, you can start getting feedback of people having problems, and you're like, well, this has never happened before. Nothing's changed that we know of. What's causing this? And then that eats up resource time, diagnostic, and then eats into money for people returning product. And then they start telling other people, hey, I bought some of their stuff and it did this. Don't buy it.
Right.
So you've got those factors there. And then now, so everybody knows we've been fighting maybe we've been fighting isn't the right term. So there's been the whole push for globalism for the last years. Well, now this current situation with the virus and the outbreak exposes one of the biggest problems with the whole globalism thing, and how once one domino falls in the supply chain when it comes to globalism, that first one falls and everything can fall after that. And for a lot of people who are getting products made overseas, and it's not just China, it's all over the world. This is a pandemic now. You get into, okay, what's going to happen when shipments are delayed, things are held up in ports, because most of this stuff coming from overseas comes via a ship freight. So then those ships, they can't come into port because there's no places to dock. Or God forbid a ship pops up, they've got someone who's exposed to the virus. Well, guess what? Nothing is being taken off that ship forever how long until the biohazard situation's handled. So now you have a whole lot more risks associated with your supply chain because of this. And you don't know when something like a pandemic is going to pop up, or an international conflict, or a trade war, or other things. So there really are those advantages to, hey, we want to keep this in-house. We want to keep it inside our borders where we know the things are under control and we don't have to worry about this. And another aspect of it too is the whole, and it's also not just the overall products being made, but you also have the situation with the stuff you need to make your products. Sorry, hold on a second. I thought I muted that. I apologize, guys.
They're coming for you. They know that there's a person inside a bar that shouldn't be. They're coming for you. Black helicopters overhead.
I have no doubt I've been on an FBI watch list for long before this. But it's the raw materials that are coming in, because the steel industry in America gets talked about a lot. What happened is the steel industry hit a downturn in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. What was going on? The Chinese were coming over here, and they'd go into the Northeast, Pennsylvania, the steel belt, all over the place. They would buy whole steel mills and plants, basically steel refineries, and they disassemble them, box them up, ship them right over to China, set them back up as they were before, and start cranking that stuff out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that put a serious hurt on the steel industry here in the country. It's turned a corner and things are starting to come back, and even more so now. If this right now, what we're dealing with, if this had happened like 15, 20 years ago, as far as the steel industry goes, there would be a lot of bad things happening right now. Because like the automakers and other people would have a hard time getting the steel to build anything. Steel rebar for any sort of construction.
Yeah,
that would be a big problem. Mm-hmm. So we've got those advantages there on the supply chain side, the manufacturing side, and most importantly too is on the manufacturing side, quality control. Monitoring and testing each product and knowing that, hey, it doesn't matter the product we made a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago to the product we're making today, it is the same. It's going to act the same, install the same, everything, and people can count on that.
Right. I concur 100%. Yeah, getting back kind of what you're talking to, the sweatshops or the slave labor. Right now, we're all pretty, I don't know, I'd say we're concerned, not panicked or worried. Certainly nobody in this room is panicked or worried, but there are Americans who have, or are right now, I should say. But just think, you could be some cog in a machine, because that's how the government views you over there in Wuhan on lockdown, and your situation would be pretty bleak. So, it might be rough out there for some people, and some people it is rough, right? Some people are genuinely afraid. They're in a high exposure area, and God bless you, hunker down and obviously stay safe,
right?
But it could always be worse. You could be over there, and those people have no hope, really. They have nothing to look forward to.
Like where you guys are at in California, you have a high immigrant population and people who have come from countries where they've seen things like this happen before, and that's why you're seeing a lot of runs on stuff, is because a lot of people are like, we know what this is like, we've been here before, we're going to go ahead and stock up now, even though they don't have to worry about supply interruptions and everything else like their native countries.
Right.
In Florida, we're kind of used to this. Whenever, you get a hurricane warning coming in, and it's like, okay, I need to go stock up on essentials. And, there is a threat too. We don't know if we're going to be able to have power, or the water supply is going to keep working, stuff like that. Things that we're not dealing with in this crisis right now. But like when I go out to the stores and go other places, it's worse than when a hurricane is coming. How people are acting. It's pretty strange.
Yeah, it is strange. I guess the one silver lining out here would be maybe some more people would be prepared in case there ever is a big earthquake. They're telling us, one's coming every year, and it doesn't. Of course, now that I said that, I shouldn't say that.
Oh yeah.
But at least maybe people will be a little prepared for it now because they've stocked up or whatever. But some people are just going nutty with it. But anyway, let's. Is there something to lighten the mood around here?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
We
good.
got something to lighten.
All right, let's lighten the mood.
All right. Yeah. Let's change the
People get enough of
subject. Yeah.
the Kung flu on the news. They don't need to hear it from here.
Exactly. Hey Patrick. So I kind of wanted to know and your first car. We talk a lot about our cars in here, and so I think it's interesting to find out your first car. When you got a car, did you get it out of necessity, or is it something that you wanted? Was it like, I want a hot rod, or I want to, or you kind of just fell into your family car? I just was interested in that.
Oh yeah. Well, I was in high school, and for a brief period, I either drove one of my parents' cars, or actually, my grandmother lived with us for a little while, so I drove her 1987 Olds Delta 88.
Yes.
Right. So
Suckers to the side. I know you hate my 8. Oh, is it a 98? Isn't that it? Yeah, never mind. Sorry.
It's all
I think
right.
that's an Oldsmobile also, though.
But past that, so my real first vehicle was I bought the 88 Ford Ranger Super Cab that my dad had bought new in December of 1988. Then passed to my brother in the 90s when he graduated from college. And I was in a junior year of high school working at AutoZone, and I wanted my own vehicle. I needed my own vehicle, and my brother was getting rid of the truck, so I bought it off of him. And I bought it off of him with 140,000 miles, and then I sold it in 2003 with 207,000 miles on the clock.
Yeah.
When I bought my current Silverado that I still drive today.
Yeah, dude, those OG Ford missed the mark on the new one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it,
God, yeah.
But those OG Rangers were, dude, they were awesome. And, dude, they went forever, man. Those things just, my uncle had one at his Big A. Delivery truck, mind you. Delivery truck is hard. It's start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Dude, that thing had like 230,000 miles on it before he had to redo the head on it. That thing was great. It was bulletproof.
Yeah. I had a 91.
The 2.3 mine
Yeah.
was pretty tired. It and by the mileage, it wasn't making that, but it started up and it ran, and you just had to plan ahead for merging into traffic on the interstate and passing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was a 91. I got it as a junior in high school because my dad was over me destroying all the cars that I had done. So I got a newer truck. It was great. I had one upgrade. It was a headliner. That was it. But that sucker ran forever. I think I put 260,000 miles on it before I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was 4-cylinder, 5-speed. I never had any problems. It was all over Mexico surfing. But, yeah, great truck. So you got in the car. Sorry.
The 91 was a dual plug head. That when it came time to do a tune-up on the 89 dual plug 2.3, the passenger side, you had to go to the driver's side and change the spark plugs. It was a royal pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So you got into cars. You had the 91 Ranger. You got the Silverado. When did you figure out you could kind of make a living in the automotive industry writing and stuff?
Yeah. When did you start writing? Because you used to write for 10, right?
Right. I used to be associated with Super Chevy Magazine. I actually goes way, way back. My dad started working in the industry in the mid 60s. He was in advertising and marketing, and he was the head of advertising and marketing for Crane Cams for most of his life, with a small stint in the 70s doing advertising and marketing for Holley from 1970 through 76.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I've literally grown up around the industry my whole life, and the writing, and my dad would do some writing for National Dragster and other thing over the years. So that's where I picked up a lot of it. And I had always been around the magazine guys because they would be coming to see my dad to get parts for projects. Ad guys would be coming to selling ads, that sort of thing. So I always knew a lot of them. And I decided pretty early on I liked that. That's what I wanted to do. And I'd always had kind of a knack for writing. So it kind of moved on from there, where all through high school, college, whatnot, that's what I wanted to do.
That's
Sounds good. That's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you come up with some pretty strange ideas. I mean, we've gotten video vlogs of you lighting stuff on fire, putting stuff underwater.
Dude, the new blog is epic. It's
So-
particularly relevant right now.
Yeah, I wanted to get, like, can we get into your mind and figure out how do you come up with the ideas of that?
Ooh. The scary thing is, it really doesn't involve alcohol.
It's sober.
I go on my own wavelength a lot, and I also have several friends who also work with cars and shop owners in the area, and we talk all the time. And sometimes we'll be talking about stuff, and an idea will come together. Or honestly, sometimes I'll be not thinking about cars at all. I'll be doing something else, and all of a sudden something will hit me out of nowhere. And I'll be like, hey, that would be pretty cool. Let's talk about it. So I am all over the map. I probably have ADD, if not some bizarre form of autism, probably. Just the way my brain works sometimes.
Yeah, that's nuts. What are you working on? Like, what have you been working on lately? I noticed we got some video stuff of you out in a car show, obviously before the country is on social pressure to be locked down, but
Yeah, so I was at the recent NMRA spring break shootout at Bradenton Motorsports Park. That was their first event of the season, and this was well before everything really started getting out of hand with the virus. And I was shooting some footage there, which is funny because I'm predominantly a GM guy, a Chevrolet guy, but I've had Fords in the past, as we were just talking about, and I have an appreciation for the Fords, like the stuff, and there's some neat things on that side.
Now, Patrick, I shouldn't tell you this because you'll hold it over my head. One time I had to use a Chevy to tow a Ford home. Because
Really?
A lot of jokes there.
Yeah. I had a good story about that. I was up in Hermosa Beach.
okay.
Some guy in a Porsche with this chick with him. He thought that was when my Mustang wasn't even painted.
Mm-hmm. I
And
remember that.
I smoked him off the line, but I hurt the engine real bad.
Oh,
I
man.
turned it into a 2-piece crankshaft.
Ooh.
And then I had to go get my dad's Chevy van that he had for the cartridge deliveries,
Oh,
rent a trailer, and tow the Mustang home. Dude, it was a bummer.
man.
He was pissed. He was not happy with me. So that's why I had to use the van. He wouldn't let me use the truck, and it was just whatever. But anyway, you can hold that over my head now. Get back to your story, Patrick.
So I was there and saw some interesting things. I mean, the car show was predominantly Mustangs, though it was pretty neat. I shot some video on the BMW, the 7 Series, with the Ford Coyote in it.
Yeah, that's a cool build, dude.
And we have video of that, and we are going to produce that and put it up on YouTube for everybody to see
Yeah.
very shortly.
Those cars, it's an interesting thing. So those cars came out in the 90s, and they had that BMW, it was a V12. It was a V12. And the car was neat looking, but that motor was extremely problematic for BMW, and very over-engineered and tight tolerances, not a lot of gimme. And I've seen it happen with a couple other BMWs where the engineer.
Are you sure you're an over-engineered German car? Are you sure?
Never.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But where they didn't take into account wear. Or it would be like, no, that's not going to wear. It's no problem. And how wear affects tolerances and everything else. So, but anyway, so those cars going into the late 90s, early 2000s, those cars became real popular for American V8 swaps. And one of the more popular one was the second gen LT1. A lot of guys would put second gen LT1s out of Corvettes in them, Corvettes and Camaros. And then later on, once the LS motor came on the scene, then those started happening. But to see one with a Coyote stuffed into it is pretty cool. A guy took a Coyote in a 6-speed setup, and I talked to him a little bit last year. I'd seen the car last year, too. And he said, I want to do something different, and I had access to this motor and transmission, so I decided, hey, what the hell, let's build it.
I can't believe he got it in there because I personally think the Coyote it's a great motor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's from an engineering standpoint, the power per liter is insane on those things.
Right.
They're just like it's like trying to put a Lincoln Continental in an engine bay. You know what I mean? They're just They're just too big.
They're so tall.
Yeah, the heads are massive.
Physically speaking, going back to the old mod motors, even the 2-valve mod motors, they were dimensionally bigger than the old 427 camera motors from the 60s.
Yeah,
and those things were not small.
Yeah, dude, like I think a timing chain on a 427 camera will go around the equator, as I understand it. So that's how big a Coyote is. It's bigger than that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, this sucker's shoehorned in there.
Yeah, it's sweet though. Yeah. It is sweet looking, and it's cool that it is different. I mean, if it was just an LS, I shouldn't say that. It'd be rad because you could probably have some room for some turbos in there too,
right.
you know.
Right.
Yeah. But the Coyote just makes it different.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, and going back to when I was on Super Chevy, this popped up all the time because a lot of guys why would you do that? That doesn't make a lot of power, and everybody becomes focused on horsepower. Not that that's an issue with a Coyote, but you know, there was times when guys would show up with cars that they had taken the straight 6 in the car and done some stuff to it. Like I remember I was at the Denver Super Chevy show, and this guy had built a really cool 55 210 two-door sedan, and he had built the 235 inline 6, put a multi-carb intake on it, put a T5, no, it was a Super T10 he put behind it, 4-speed. And this thing just looked great. Everybody was like, well, why would you do that? It doesn't make any power. You know, a stock 327 or whatever would make more power than that. And it fell into that line. Everybody else had a small block in their car. He wanted to be different.
Sure.
He wanted to stand out.
Yeah.
And you get into that where it's not always, it shouldn't always be about horsepower, which, I mean, maybe that's blasphemous for some people, but there comes a point when you go to a show, and if everything is close to being the same, nothing's going to stand out. Whereas if you're that one guy who, yeah, I don't have near as much horsepower as those guys, but my engine and my look is totally different, that car is going to be the one to stand out amongst everything, and it's going to end up getting more attention too.
You know, the thing too with more horsepower, high horsepower, that type of thing, you got to do a lot of stuff to the chassis and the suspension, because you can have all the horsepower in the world, but if you don't get it to the ground,
twist and
it
shout.
doesn't do you any good, you know?
Oh,
so
yeah. Well, that's why a low horse always, you know, you see where lower horsepower cars beat higher horsepower cars, because you can have 700-800 horsepower under the hood, but if you don't have enough surface area tire in the rear or the front for our front wheel drive guys, if you don't have enough surface area tire where the power's getting put, yeah, you're going to smoke the tires, you're going to spin.
Yeah.
You're not going to do much of anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes a bigger motor too if you're going around like corners, you know, if you go left and right.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bigger motor is just an anchor up front, and it affects your handling. While if you get a straightaway, sure, you can make up time there. So it's always about balance, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I've talked to people who run SCCA and a lot of guys who do autocross and track days, and they even talk about the fact that sometimes the car with less horsepower is easier to drive, because instead of having to feather the throttle, play with the brakes and everything, because you've got so much horsepower and torque, you could break loose. Lower horsepower where you're not having to worry about traction.
Right.
For the most part, then it's like, okay, foot in, foot out.
Right.
Foot in, foot out. Boom. And then your mind can focus on a lot more stuff.
Right.
Than having that constant worry of, okay, don't hit the throttle too hard, or I'm going to break the tires loose and have issues.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's time to answer those burning questions. It's tech time here on Hot Laps.
We're going to let Patrick and Shane answer the tech question today, and I will just interject. That way we can get a little more out of somebody over here. The librarian. Let's do that. Maybe that's his podcast name. He's the librarian because he's quiet over here.
Hi, I'm Shane from Heatshield, the librarian. All right, so the first question comes from Mark. Mark, thank you for the question. Mark's got a 320 horsepower snowmobile. So, Mark, if you're listening,
I'm a snowmobile expert.
That kind of,
God bless you.
yeah, that thing's pretty.
Rode one to work
pretty
today.
Killer. Anyway, his question.
Here, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
His question is, he's interested in the header shield, but he wanted to know, can you run that along with the header wrap? Obviously, he's got a major heat problem.
Sure.
And what he said was basically, I got a ½ inch away from the gas tank, comparing, he upgraded the header, but it used to be 3/4 of an inch, now it's a ½ inch, and he's literally burning through the tank. So his question was, if I wrap my exhaust with exhaust wrap and I cover it with header, is that worthy, or how would you skin that cat?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would use the header armor, and then something to insulate the tank.
Yeah, like a lava,
Like
the thick lava shield or something. Yeah, or
sticky shield. Yeah, lava shield.
So he's
Focus on both rather than just the one.
So is what'll happen if you put like any of the armor wraps over like a fiberglass or even the lava. The only one that it might work on would be the silica wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's going to happen is they'll get brittle.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have even more heat retained in them. They'll exceed their operating temperature. They'll fall apart, and then then the armor or the heat shield or whatever is going to rattle around because it's not going to be tight on the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is a question that probably comes up in a lot of people's mind, because some people think more is better, but
not always.
The reality here is don't do it. And I think our suggestion to you, Mark, is wrap or cover the
one
pipes.
or the other.
Yeah. And then use a barrier shield on your fuel tank.
Armor will stop more heat than the wrap, so that's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
something else in there too, and we've talked about this with other people, is also keeping more heat in that exhaust header. If it's a tubular exhaust header too, is what's the gauge of the metal, and can it handle all the extra heat that double shielding it would cause too?
Yeah.
You know, that creates the myth of, exhaust wrap destroys headers. Well, no, it's not the headers that are getting destroyed. It's the wrap is doing its job keeping more heat in, but the metal that the header is made from is not capable of withstanding that.
Yeah. Might be Chinese metal.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is, again, get back to the first segment of the show.
Exactly.
If it's an import header, don't put anything on it, you know. But if it's, thick gauge,
made in America,
steel, you can get away. So like heavy duty trucks. This is well, turn this into that. So, people talk about the wrap, and oh man, they argue it'll. Well, I mean, back in the 70s when there was like and I don't want to single a certain company out, but there was one large header manufacturer, and this is people just didn't know. So the header was cheap thin wall steel, and when you wrapped it did that. But again, working in other industries like marine, like heavy duty trucks, like heavy duty equipment, they completely wrap their exhaust there.
Yeah.
And it's the reason is the heat doesn't fatigue the metal because the metal's a thicker wall. So on cars, it's a price point thing. Thin wall steel, man, I just use the armor, let it breathe out. Let it breathe, let it breathe. Don't use a wrap. If you've got thicker steel, then use a wrap. It's fine if you feel more comfortable using it. The wrap's easier around bends, but the armor is super easy and simple, especially on straight runs and stuff like that. It's just a no-brainer. Just use it.
Right on. Next one comes from Keith. Keith wants to know about the lava shield, so thank you for your question, Keith. Says, I'm considering using the lava shield on the engine side of my firewall, which is a good thing to do. Is the product vulnerable to chemical, and can it be cleaned after installation?
It is not. So the basalt fiber, the magma, the lava rock fiber, it's naturally chemical, oil, water, even acid resistant. I mean, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat stuff.
And it looks good.
And it looks good. You can clean it, no pressure washers, because it's gotta think of it like it'd be like hitting your T-shirt with a pressure washer. You're just gonna shred it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to, like, dilute some simple green or some other kind of degreaser, proper power, or something like that, real mild, like mix it a real mild mixture, just use a little brush and you can get it off that way.
Cool. 2 thicknesses on that lava shield. Yeah. So on the firewall versus something like a
thicker
hood,
one.
Go with the thicker one.
Thick one, a trans tunnel, that type. I mean, if it's me, again, I'm a function over form. I would sticky shield a firewall. I mean, that's why the Bronco. It's in your face when you pop the hood on it, but it's sticky shield right there. It works better. But if you got to balance Gucci and performance, then the thick lava shield is the way to go.
Yeah.
So thick there.
Yep.
All right.
What was the answer for the guy that had the problem with the tape on sticking to his?
Okay. So our Facebook follower, our guy in Australia, and he's supposed to be sending me some more pictures today. Obviously, we're dealing with the massive time difference. I was actually talking to him till about 11 o'clock last night, our time, and he was happy with the product, except for in areas where so on our website, there's the picture of the Viper where heat shield armor and sticky shield has been installed under that leg pipe fairing that those early Vipers had.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing something similar to a vehicle in Australia. And in a couple of areas, he was having problems where the edges of the tape, according to what he told me, the edges of the tape were curling up. Not everywhere, just in a couple of spots. So I asked him to send us some pictures so we could look at those areas, see what it's doing, and get the details to figure out, what's going on to get everything settled up for him. Because he ordered everything. He spent about $1,000 ordering everything through Summit Racing to get the products over
Wow.
there.
Wow. He could have got it from knee parts down in Australia. Maybe saved himself a few bucks, but hey, it's good to support Summit, man. We need to keep the U.S. economy going. So, any international listeners, please feel free to buy from a U.S. dealer. Yeah.
Link to that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure why he decided to go with Summit when we do have someone over there.
Yeah.
But
Hey, what? Maybe he didn't have all the parts. So the secret there is to clean it before you put it down. So a lot of times, Shane's more of an expert at this because he's done more installs. So like when you're pushing the sticky shield in, you got oil and stuff on your hands. You always want to wipe that down first and then put the tape down. Shane can speak more on that because he's kind of the professional.
I usually wear gloves, latex gloves. When
there you go.
And I clean the surface so
before you
helps.
put the tape on the edge. Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And Shane is meticulous.
I try to be.
The surface, because the surface of the sticky shield is, and it's similar like how the foil surface is of the heat shield armor and the sticky shield. It's not a flat surface. It's got the bumps and the texture to it as part of the design. And obviously, if you're going to put the tape on there, your surface area, you're only going to be contacting the higher points of the surface. So, that's something else that people have got to keep in mind when they're using the tape on that is to, as they're installing it, kind of press it down right so you get more surface area contact with the tape along seams and whatnot.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, another trick too is I think people might be missing is I use brake clean and I clean the outside perimeter of the aluminized side of the sticky shield
before putting the tape on. There you go. Pro tip from a pro.
Yep, our pro.
All right, is that it?
No, we got a product showcase real quick. I just want to – we're on the subject of Made in America, and I just wanted to talk about our –
That's our Ditto Cam.
Lava
if you're on the
starter
Ditto
shield.
Cam, the Lava Starter Shield. There you go.
And temperature rating, Steve, if you will.
1,200 degrees.
The process of installation. It's that easy.
Yeah, just install it.
Hook and loop.
Hook and loop on. Thank you, Shane. I almost used a word I wasn't supposed to. Super easy. Never had one fall off, and we've been making them since 1985 with the hook and loop fastener. So
and sizes?
Small body starters like that one, which is the most common, and then we do have the larger shield for the older Ford and GM starters. It actually really was a thing that was in the early days was real common on motorhomes because any 350 powered motorhome, they were always underpowered, not because of the motor, but because of a motorhome. You're trying to power the thing.
Yeah.
So you put headers down there and it would cook the solenoid. And GM always had the solenoid on the top of the starter. Well, everybody's gone to the solenoid on top of the starter in their small body. And even though the starters have shrunk in size, we're jamming more things into smaller areas, so you still need them. Yeah. Is what you're trying to do is prevent that solenoid from overheating so the starter will engage. It's less about the motor and more about the solenoid.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet, Steve, but then there's also a lot of the newer motors, a lot of the import motors, I don't know if there are any domestic motors, where the engineers mounted the starter in the valley.
Oh, yeah.
Intake. And
some Toyota V8s are that way.
No
poor design
whatsoever. And when one of those starters goes bye-bye, it's expensive because half the motor's got to come apart to change it.
Yeah, what Appalachian genius thought that was a good idea? Holy Toledo, man. That does not – I mean, there's just no – that's one of those things where it seems great because you're trying to stuff it somewhere, and there's a gap there, don't get me wrong. But dude, maintenance people, engineers out there, hello. In the real world, things break down and they need to be replaced. So please think of that when you're designing products.
But no, that's one that Chrysler got on everybody though, is the gear reduction starter. When Chrysler came out with that in the 60s, and it was like, oh hey, this is really good. We're not seeing starter failures like everybody else does, or like even used to.
And it took a while for everyone else to catch on, you know.
Mm-hmm. And thank everybody for listening. And again, stay safe.
Yeah.
Wash those hands.
Yeah.
Don't panic. Stay calm.
Yeah.
Use common sense.
And if you are at home and you want to watch our YouTube channel, Steve.
Yeah, it's at Heatshield Products, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio. It's Hot Laps. Excuse me, that's the episode. The podcast name is Hot Laps. Anchor, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere. Please, if you like it, leave us a little 5-star review and a thank you or a thumbs up or whatever. It really does help us, so please do that. And then you can follow us on social media at Heatshield Products, and then go check out the website, heatshieldproducts.com, or send Patrick and Chris a message through Instagram at Heatshield Products.
Yeah, we invite your feedback.
Instagram, Facebook, you can always get a hold of someone easily from any of the social media channels.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Hunker in
place. Yeah, hunker in place. Thank you.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Yep.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye, Patrick.
See you, Patrick.
From everyone at Heatshield Products, we thank you for listening to Hot Laps. Leave that review, subscribe, tell a friend, and most of all, stay cool. We'll see you next time, right here on Hot Laps.